Hey guys, it is finally It Day! Woo! Today is Friday. I'm gonna go see It. I am so excited. Obviously, It Chapter 2, 2019. But to clarify, I have consumed so much It content over the last week. From Wednesday last week to Wednesday this week, I had the audiobook on, the It audiobook. I played that. So that's 44 hours I did within a week. It was a little bit of overload. And then yesterday I watched the 1990 It, so the original TV miniseries It. I rewatched it. And then in the afternoon I rewatched the part 1 2017 It. So I've consumed all of the It content and it's all refreshed in my mind. It is so interesting having it all side by side. I hadn't read the book before. I had read passages because there's a certain passage that everyone talks about in the book, I'm sure you know, the sexual content, that I really wanted to know the context around. So I had read little bits and pieces of the It book, but I hadn't read the whole thing. So having that all in my brain and then rewatching the first one has changed my perception on a lot of things. Still a huge fan, but I feel so differently about the remake now. I really like the remake, don't get that wrong. I just think it's so interesting the way that they have taken things and changed things, and I think that they've done a fantastic job. And I kind of appreciate it more in a way. So I'm very excited to see part 2. This is very interesting because it's not like I'm gonna give you a lead up into this film. You know what the film's about. I think that the really interesting thing is gonna be coming out of this and seeing if it did work out right, having them in 2 different parts, whereas in the miniseries and the book goes back and forth from them being kids to adults, obviously this one, it had them all as children as the part 1, and they've separated it into adults for the part 2. I know there will be flashbacks, but I'm just really interested to see if the way that they've split this is going to pay off, because for me, I felt like it worked really well. The book is obviously the shining star, but I think that the separation of the timelines works really well in the first film, so I really want to see if it carries on well in the second film. That's one of the number 1 things I'm looking out for. I loved the kids in the 2017 film as well. I think that they did such an amazing job compared to the 1990 film, which, I mean, it's a classic and it definitely has its spot, but I feel like because it is such a rushed film, this is 3 hours, which back in the day seemed like forever, but more and more films are coming up to 2.5 hours, and it's becoming a regular thing to sit in the cinema for more than 2 hours. So I felt like in the original TV movie, whatever you want to call it, 1990 film, it was all very rushed, where obviously in the newer films, they have taken their time to set up the characters, and so they've had more time to really get you into their skin and feel their fears, and wow, they went insane with the fears in the first 2017 one. So I'm excited to see part 2 tonight. Just really excited to see the flow and how it kind of adds on to that. And I'm looking at it definitely from a perspective of the book and the first movie, just because I've just seen them. So I really want to focus on the comparisons, or at least make that part of my review, because I'm really excited to see that aspect. I know that the acting's going to be great, and I'm just excited to see like the final, the finale, and how that's going to kind of come to fruition. But to be honest, in the 2017 film, it was so scary. Like, I don't care what anyone says, when he gets those like crab legs, terrifying. So it should be interesting to see if it gets any darker. You can see right here, I'm rocking my It versus It. Well, it's kind of like an integration of both of the films, which I really love. I love this shirt. And I have another one, I have another Pennywise shirt as well. I love Pennywise so much, and I love the way they've done both of them. I think it's so clever, and one thing I really do want to say to you guys on a positive note is this is like a reboot that is so amazing. And we talk about how bad reboots are all the time, and I'm totally guilty of this, especially with my Jacob's Ladder one. That was so bad. But I think that we need to celebrate how great this remake is, and I'm very excited tonight. My expectations may be high. I know a lot of people have come out being like, but we'll see. Everything is fresh in my mind, so I'm going to give you a good comparison perspective, spoiler free, of course. And I know you guys are going to go see it this weekend, so I really hope you enjoy it too. And I hope I enjoy it. I'm going to go see a Friday night, Fright Night screening at Inaloo Cinemas, which is my fave, and they're going to do some clowns and fun things like that. So I'm very excited to take you along, and hopefully I won't be eaten by Pennywise.
will float forever. You'll float too. You'll float too.
Look at that.
You'll float too. You'll float too.
Oh my god.
Nose.
Zach behind.
The nose. Jesus, I'm going boy. I want to
Hi. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is someone trying to be scared? Okay. I wasn't sure if that was just... How you going? Not breaking character. Anyone got any... anything to say, Scott? Hi guys, I just finished watching It 2. My god, was that a long movie? Wow. I'm gonna keep this spoiler free, obviously. I guess the first initial impression that I want to say is I really enjoyed the film. And I think it was kind of exactly what I was expecting. And I think a lot of people will walk out of this film feeling like part 1 was better because it was like such a build up and a lead up, and part 2 was great, but it just leaves you wanting more. And I feel like that is something to think about when you walk away from this film, because I feel like a lot of people have been saying they feel like something's missing from it, but it was 2 hours and 45 minutes worth of real high tension stuff. Like, it wasn't slow. There was a lot of aspects put in to part 2, and I don't feel like there was anything unnecessarily in there, but I felt like, you know, you just wanted more, because it's really sad to say goodbye to Pennywise. Comparing the film from the book to the original film, they do change a couple of things that I think that it was a good change. I think that it was a clever change, and I think just like part 1 that did change a lot from the book and the first film, I feel like it was a structure change and dynamic change that really helped the movie be more understandable on screen and make more sense. I guess this is the one thing I can say about the new film, is that they do bring more homophobia into the script, the idea, the film. This is something that is very prevalent in the book, and racism also is crazy in the book, and it's not really touched on either film, and I felt that was very interesting that they did touch more on the homophobia. Just an interesting comment on the whole film, but I was glad that they brought out some of that darker, deeper stuff into the film. I felt like it was necessary, and it shows, you know, the message of it about, you know, how toxic and dark this town is and how it's just breeding hate, and from there that turns into fear, which turns into fear itself, you know what I mean? I guess because we already know from the first part, this is a very interesting come with me video, because from the first part we know the setup, we know the story, but I guess using the actors, the adult actors, I thought that they were phenomenal. I don't know how they made them look so much like the kids. They did such a good job of picking people and really having their characters shine through. But in saying that, there was a few times where they didn't exactly embody what they were as children, but again, when they were children, they had all their spirit, and when they grew up and they come back to Derry and obviously they relearn their past, you know, it's a little bit of a touch and go situation, and they're going through a lot, so they don't really sparkle like they did when they were children. So it's a little bit different and a little bit off-putting, but that's what it's meant to be. I feel like this film is exactly what it was meant to be, but but for me, I guess I would have liked to see a little bit more clown. The clown's everywhere in the film. This is the thing though. What I want is just more Pennywise, because I love Pennywise, not because he actually should have been in more of the film. He was in a lot of the film, and the parts he was in was so epic. So, I mean, I really don't have any complaints, just that I wanted more. I wanted more, but also the film went for a long time, so it's a really hard situation. I know that I'm not making much sense, but one of my friends, Patrick, he said it really well, saying that he wished it was kind of like a TV series and he could have different parts on different characters, because the story of it is such an immense, detailed story, and it just never will feel like it's enough. But again, I'm glad to go see this at the cinema. I'd rather see this at the cinema than watch a TV show that would burn out. It just feels like it's the end, and it's kind of sad. I think that an interesting aspect of this as well is, even though we are dealing with a clown, obviously, that is kind of like a shapeshifter in a way, this movie is more fantasy than I expected. A lot of the scenes were a lot more fantasy, which I guess the original film doesn't have a lot of, because it doesn't go heavy on CGI or anything like that in the first film. It's a lot of flash to whites. So I felt like that was really interesting in this film, that I felt myself thinking, wow, this is more fantasy than I would normally like to watch. So that was interesting. Also, it did utilize a lot of flashbacks just to refresh the film for a lot of people. But if you are thinking about rewatching part 1, I totally recommend it. It had like a lot of in-jokes with part 1, and if you aren't remembering from 2 years ago, I think it's very important. But yeah, the flash to whites to the memories was a little bit outdated, just like it did in the first one. I feel like we've kind of moved past that, but who knows, I could have screen tested a different kind of transition and I could be totally wrong. Also, on that kind of effect, it did feel a little bit dramatic, or like drama felt, with some of the, you know, soapy situations between the characters, the love triangle that we all know and love. So that was a little bit soppy and, you know, sappy, but I think that it is needed. That's part of the story, and it's definitely part of the source material. So I think that it kind of works in this, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have something in my eye towards the end of the film. I was definitely shedding a few tears, because it's just so beautiful, and it definitely leaves you with all the feels, if you want to feel them. If you go in hoping for this to be a great film, I think that you will find it is exactly what we hoped it to be, but it's not more than what we hoped it to be. It's not better than anyone could imagine. But to be honest, I don't see how they could. There's nothing I can fault in this film. It's very strange to talk about, because I don't feel like anything is wrong. I just don't think it's amazing. And I guess that's how I feel. I feel like the first part was so amazing and so much more than I could ever like hope for. And this one, it was kind of like hitting all of the checkpoints and not going through the motions, but really, you know, getting to the story, getting to the moment. And I felt like they did it really well. And there was a lot of really interesting ways they interpret, you know, its apparitions and all those kind of things and their fears. And I thought that they did that really well. It was very creepy. I definitely jumped a couple of times. There are some jump scares, and it is pretty brutal. I really did like this film, and I think it will be a classic moving forward. I think that this remake is amazing. I think that they did such a good job, and I just can't believe we had to wait 2 years to see the second part. So I feel like we're kind of all in a blue state, where we're walking out being like, wow, that was just like I thought, and now it's done. So I feel like it's more of a come down from that. But those are my initial feelings. It is 10 to 1 in the morning after watching that. So that's just my first impression of the film. It's just such a good remake, guys. I know I'm probably blabbing on, but I'd love to know what you guys thought down below. Obviously, I'm giving my tick of approval. If you want to go see it this weekend, or if you're thinking about it, go do it, guys. And I would recommend rewatching the first one before going to see it. I think that the structural changes of the movie, like the part 1 and part 2 combined, was really, really smart. I really love separating the adults and the kids. I think it was a smart choice, and I think from there they really pulled off something unique and really got to deep dive into the characters that you don't really get to see much in books to movies anymore. And I think that the way that they recreated Pennywise and the children was so clever, and anything that they changed, I feel like they improved on visually for the film. It all made so much sense why they changed certain things, and I think you'll find that in part 2 if you are attached to the source material. Part 2, you'll definitely find a lot of Easter eggs everywhere. I can't tell you how many things in the background I noticed from the book, which was so cool, but I think a lot of the things that they changed make so much more sense on screens. I'm obsessed with the It remake as a whole, but I do prefer the first part But in saying that, this is just my first impressions, and I'm still going to give it an 8 out of 10, which is a great score. I hope you guys are having a great day, and let me know what you thought about it down below, and why did you love it? Let me know down below. If you want to subscribe, now is a perfect time. I make 2 new videos every single week about horror, the horror world, horror content, horror films, so please subscribe and be in the know, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.